Well, hello there everyone, my name is Amy, this is the Opinionated Woman, and welcome back to another Crafty Reads. Do you like my background, friend? I found it by the beach. It's a seed pod. It's so cool. So it's raining right now, so I didn't want it to get wet, so it's chilling on my couch. It's going to be a cool background. As usual, I am working on a piece, so this is all of the collaging that I did last time. Now I'm going in. A lot of my pieces that I do with this collaging, I like to add in written word, and because of the topic of this, which is personal, I'm going to be writing on it, but I like to write in cursive because it's harder to see, and I don't want it to be something that someone will sit and read. I want it to be texture. So it's going to be really hard for me to write and speak at the same time, but we'll see how we go. I've got 5 books here that have actually been divided into 3 good physical books and 2 bad audios. So let's get into it. Let's start off with How to Be a Revolutionary by C.A. David. First of all, let's have a cup. Let's have a sip. It is raining today. It is the perfect day for a cup of warm coffee. How to Be a Revolutionary by C.A. Davids. So this is a South African author. I read this from my South African reading blog. I also went to the launch party of this and heard the author speak about it, which is very interesting. So this follows Beth, who is a South African woman, a coloured woman, which is an ethnicity here. And she lives in Cape Town, and then she moves to Shanghai. She moves to Shanghai to this apartment block, and she can hear her neighbor above her typing on the typewriter, and she eventually becomes friends with this ornery old man. But whenever she asks him about his writing, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't have a typewriter. And she's like, okay, whatever. So they carry on going, and it's the point of views are taken from Beth in Shanghai, Zhao, the old man, in Shanghai, Zhao's past, Beth's past, so Zhao's past, dealing with communist China and everything. I mean, even in the current, the present setting, they're dealing with communist China. They were dealing with Beth in our time right now, and then back during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which happened after apartheid, as well as some things that happened during apartheid and their sort of protests about it. It also follows the letters between Langston Hughes, which is he's a famous author of colour in the US, and a South African author that they actually were never 100% sure who he was writing these letters to. These were actual real letters. So as you can tell, this has got a lot of stuff in it, and it was difficult to keep track of all of the things. I feel like if there were fewer time frames, fewer storylines, and really getting into them, I would have enjoyed this much more. And see, this is hard. I can't do this at the same time. So I found that even though in when she was talking about this book, she's like, it's not really about how to be a revolutionary, but I feel like because they're talking about communist China and the apartheid government, there are little things that all of the people did in this book that were acts of revolution, acts of rebellion almost against these things. Little ways that each small person can make a difference, I guess. And that was very interesting. It wasn't my favorite of all of the ones that I read for that blog, but I'm really glad that I read it, and it's something very different that I wouldn't have read before. Oh, this is hard to do. Okay. Then we went to one of the really crappy audiobooks. So in My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. First of all, that name, no sense. Makes no fucking sense. There were no knives involved in this. So I'm really confused as to why they decided to go with this this book title, but whatever. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife follows a group of rich white people, as fucking usual. It follows a group of rich white kids who, during their university years, one of their friends was murdered, another of their friends was blamed for it but never charged, and they all kind of go their separate ways, and then they come back to the university for a reunion, and things start to come to light. it feels like one of those books that it's sort of like inspired by If We Were Villains by ML Rio. You know, with one of their party being murdered and nobody knows who it was. They're all really rich and privileged. There's like a bunch of interconnectedness between them, like, you know, people cheating with different people dating different people within the group. And to be honest, I didn't really care about any of these characters. Like, I thought they were all shitty people, but they weren't shitty in the way that I like. Like in If We Were Villains and say The Secret History, which is also another, like, you know, friend group with murder involved, the characters were unlikable in a way that I enjoyed. Whereas these characters, I was just like, they're just rich and frustrating. They're rich and privileged and take their friendships for granted, take their relationships for granted. I just didn't enjoy them, and there were twists. Because I wasn't engaged in the characters, I didn't find myself caring about the twists at all. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's him, all right, like, whatever. And this has made me realize that I unfortunately can't take thriller recommendations from two of my favorite YouTubers anymore. I really love Gabby Reads and Books and Lala, and I can't read the thrillers they like because our tastes are completely different, and that's totally fine. I still really enjoy their videos. I will probably still watch their thriller vlogs because their vlogs are so fun, but I can't take recommendations from them anymore because both of them, I think, had In My Dreams I Hold a Knife in their top 10, if not like their top book of the year, and I really hated it. I was so annoyed. I just wanted the book to end. I was like, this needs to end now, thank you. So yeah, I was a bit frustrated with that. I just did some lines on here that I'm not happy with, so I'm using spit to take it off and just add like a gray tint to that map. Okay, sick. Spit, what do you know? So yeah, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife was really disappointing, and I really wish that I would cared about those characters, but I absolutely did not. Then I read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I'm realizing that it's absolutely impossible for me to write these words while I'm talking to you. So I'm going to have to give up on that right now, but I'm going to tape off some pieces because I wanted to add tape, because this is sort of about some like repairing and coming together and putting myself together after a certain event. So I need to be taped up. I'm taping my safety pinning my broken pieces back together, basically. Okay, so this book is really renowned because obviously it also had a movie featuring Jack Nicholson in his younger years, and apparently it's really harrowing. Whenever I talk about this book, people are like, oh God, you're reading that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm reading that. And it wasn't anything too harrowing at any point, because okay, we're basically we're in a mental hospital, a psychiatric hospital, not one that you have to be committed to. You can be there for voluntarily, so it's not like a criminal facility. So we're following, the narrator is a half Native American man called Chief Bromden, and he's mute at the beginning of the story, and people don't think he can hear, so he gets to hear and see and observe a lot of things in the hospital without people really paying attention to him. And then they get a new inmate called McMurphy, which is who Jack Nicholson plays in the movie, and he starts like riling everything up. He's like completely wild, and they get up to a lot of like hijinks and nonsense, and I wasn't finding it to be too intense. I found Chief Bromden's like internal workings quite interesting, because he would talk about like the brain fog and everything, but he sees it as physical fog, and he thinks there's a fog machine going on, and that's why this is happening. So those sort of like internal parts were really interesting. And then I got to the last like quarter. Oh my fuck. The last quarter was hardcore. Now I know why people talk about this book the way that they do. holy shit, it was so damn intense. And I almost couldn't believe I was sitting there going, the whole time I had my hand in my mouth, and I was like, what the hell am I reading? But yeah, fuck, it dealt with it really, really well, I think, but it's like trigger warnings for like suicide, death, violence, racial slurs, like a bunch of stuff. So I understand why it was had that kind of reputation, holy moly, but I would recommend it though. It's a classic for a reason. I think it's very well written. Then we have the other audiobook, and that is A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Morrow. This is the sequel to A Song Below Water, which is a book that is all about sirens and gorgons and Iloko, like basically magical beings that exist like within our world, and like people know about them and everything. So it's almost like magical realism. And the first book, I really enjoyed the magic and stuff in the beginning and the two girls that we were following, but it sort of tailed off at the end in a way that I didn't really enjoy very much. But I decided to give Chorus Rises a go because I wanted to get more into their story. But unfortunately, this story is told from Naima's point of view. Now, Naima was a antagonist in the last book, and she was really frustrating to deal with. So having this book be entirely in her voice, oh, she's like a privileged, whiny little cow. And she's an influencer, and she's always moaning about like having so many people adoringly following her. And oh, she's just a bitch. She's a real fucking bitch. And I didn't enjoy her at all. And I didn't like her point of view. And I was just like in her head the entire time, and I could not relate to her. Exactly like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. She's not likable, she's not unlikable in a way that I like. Like, I can't stand people that are like bratty, you know, and she was a real fucking brat. And I'm not going to be carrying on with the series. It was also so little magic. It's like some magic sneezed in the next room. It like, there was the illusion to magic sometimes, but no actual magic on page. And I was like, why am I reading a YA fantasy with no fucking fantasy in it? It was very frustrating. So I decided to, just not read this series anymore. See, now I've got some bits taped up. So now I just need to add the words, which I think I will quickly do after I've talked to you about this, and then I'll show you what the end product looks like. So the last book that I read was Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall. Now, this is not the type of book that I would normally pick up. My dad put this in my hand and offered to buy it for me, and I was like, okay. And it's about geopolitics. It takes 10 maps from throughout the world, and it tells you how those countries came about, why they came about, the different political affiliations they have, the issues they have with certain countries, how their geography affects like their trade, their economy, wars, all that kind of stuff. It's so interesting, and it goes into areas that I had no idea about, and now I feel like I'm so much more knowledgeable about like so many parts of my world. And I found that the underlying issue is colonialists drawing lines on maps of places that are far away and not fucking knowing what they're doing. Like, I could not count the amount of times in this book that it'll be like, okay, so there's been tensions between these two countries because the colonialists took like this area of land, drew a line halfway down and goes, okay, that's North Korea, that's South. And it's really fucked with shit, you know, and that like North and South Korea is just an example. It's happened in the Middle East, it's happened in Africa, dividing up like racial groups and religious groups by putting a line smack bang through them, and then causing so many issues like throughout the world just because they were too greedy and too lazy to actually find out what was happening in these countries. All they wanted to do was gain land, and it was utterly fascinating. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the world but you're a bit intimidated, this book is so approachable. So I would really recommend it. Okay, I just sat here quickly for a second. I used a grey fine liner and I drew in bits there. I know these may seem very weird and like nonsensical to a lot of people, but they make a lot of sense for me, and they I remember the periods that I made each one, and it feels so, I don't know, it's really satisfying, and I like working with different materials and getting creative. So yeah, I finished another piece that was really quick. Yay! So we'll try a new one for the next Crafty reads. I already finished another book, so I'm already on my way to 5. I finished one just before starting to film this. But I do hope you enjoyed this Crafty reads. If you did, please let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that kind of things. Please follow me on my social medias. I'm very active on TikTok as well as Instagram. And yeah, I'll check you next time.